Sheriff for the Carson City Republican Party, and with me is my colleague Lucia.
Maloney.
That's right. And so we're interviewing, we're here with Kenny Furlong, who's running for Office of Sheriff in Carson City. And so we thought we'd have a chance to sit down with you and ask you some questions.
I appreciate it. It's fun.
All right, very good. So we'll walk us through your real quickly, your legal career and your you've been sheriff for a while. So what made you decide you still want to run for
I'm not out of energy yet. It is interesting because for me, it goes back to when I was 6 years old. I saw law enforcement as heroes and mentors in the community. That's at 6 years old. I remember the day when I met the sheriff in Carson City, and I was just so fascinated by it. And of course, growing up in a law enforcement family, I got to see how law enforcement functioned. My father ended up being the undersheriff, and he would talk to me about the things that they do, and I'm like, Daddy, the world doesn't work that way. And so I had a lot of education growing up. As I went through high school, I had my eyeballs on working for the sheriff's office, too young, lacked education. I didn't think I would be a good candidate in the selection list. And so my wife and I, we had just had a son and decided, well, let's do the military for a little bit. And so I entered the Air Force as security policeman and began my real education, if you will. I had done some up at WNC, but really intensified once I got into the Air Force. All in law enforcement. And if you ask me a standout in that era, it was police community relations. And this is dating all the way back into the 70s and 80s. The emphasis on community and the relationships. Now remember, as a child, that's what I saw. These heroes. I don't know if they were, but they were to me. And so I went on and ended up getting an associate's degree in police science. Followed that through the Air Force. Followed that with a associate's degree in criminal justice, and really loved what I was doing as a security policeman. Traveling the world was phenomenal. We'll get back to that. So I continued, got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration. By then I was working for the Office of Special Investigations, which kind of equates to what the State Investigations Bureau does. Major crimes investigator, narcotics investigator, counterintelligence, those types of things. I ended up down at Nellis Air Force Base at the end of my 20 years as a superintendent of operations, both on the counterintelligence and the criminal side, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Came back to Carson City, where I always wanted to come back to, and times were ripe. By 2002, I had made my intention to run for sheriff. Why then? Rod Bannister was the sheriff at the time. He's a friend of mine. I have loyalty deep in my blood, and once I was felt assured that he was not going to run again, that's when I made my commitment at that point that I would run that year, and got elected. I've gone through, since being elected, the command colleges and the peace officer standards and training certifications. I now hold an executive certification with Nevada Post, and have continued to learn and thrive in this environment. It's just been phenomenal. I love Carson City, but it's more than a passion for Carson City. I see this as a town that is very unique in a lot of ways. Number one, we're the state capital, so we stand out from all others. We're a municipality. We stand out from all others. I've enjoyed 20 years of what I say has been great support from the local governments, great support from the community, great support from our nonprofit organizations. I believe in that community policing. the community policing. And so that foundation that started so far back continues on to this day. And I think that that engagement is what has allowed me to enjoy so much of Carson City. While you may ask, Sheriff, why aren't you doing animal control? Well, we have an organization that does that. What I need to do is link to that. That's that engagement. Sheriff, we need more crisis intervention. We have Mallory, the crisis center. I need to be engaged with that. So that police-community relationships, to me, is a very, very fundamental foundation of how we operate and where we're going. We don't need to use law enforcement to do non-law enforcement things, but we do need to collaborate, because when people are most frustrated, I'm tired of this raccoon getting in my yard, they call 911. Somebody has to do something about the problem. And so I love the engagement with the community so that we can make referrals to services that quickly and eagerly jump up when it's necessary. So then we get to why now again. I hate to use the cliche, but I'm not done. I'm not done at anything. I see our regional efforts with law enforcement at an all-time high. It's just amazing. And I give you an example. We just, this past year, invited in and worked out a relationship with Lyon County for officer-involved shootings, how we would collaborate. In the past, we had done it with the state and Douglas County and us. I chose to, I think we need to reach out to Lyon County as well. They're our bordering community. We're that relationship. So we did, and so that relationship is building. I feel we are continuing to build, but at the same time realizing some of the detriments that are going on around us, other law enforcement agencies, and I just won't mention how you trip and fall so fast. It can happen. Right now, we have invested years of work into what's called our infrastructure. We are building an infrastructure into the sheriff's office, and I should say more appropriately public safety, that is going to replace a 25-year-old system. The reason for it is technology has advanced so much that that system that was purchased 25 years ago, just before I became the sheriff, it was being bled along or held on by a shoestring. Surely the city got its money's worth, but it was time for technology. Can we look at other ways of doing business? For example, dispatching the nearest resource instead of the textbook resource. You have fire stations. I love fire stations, so it's a good example. Fire station 1, 2, and 3. Well, if the fire truck from station 1 is passing something, you're going to get a more immediate response if you just dispatch it, okay, versus the traditional way. So these technologies are designed to advance our abilities to safeguard and respond to the community needs. That system that was 25 years old didn't have that. On the police side, I look for more information to go out to the public. More rapid, more detailed. Right now, we post on our website, back to community relationships. Where's the crime occurring? Who has warrants in our community? Things that the public is interested in, wants to know about. But those systems are, I don't want to use the word antiquated, but they're too rigid. I can't change them. If you go to Carson City Crime Mapping, which is on our website, it has a list of offenses that you can look at, burglaries, robberies, and so on, and see when they're happening and where they're happening, because I believe that you are your first line of defense, okay? The problem with that particular platform today is those offenses are rigid. I can't change them. But what if she's interested more in something else? Say, for example, you're a mom and you live in a residential neighborhood and you're more interested in are there peeping toms, prowlers, burglary, things in mind. Right now, this system's too rigid. What we're bringing on is a system of flexibility so that more information can come out and you can feel that safeguarding of your own place because you're aware and knowledgeable. There is a drawback to that. The more you're aware, sometimes the more frightening that can become. Okay, which brings up another subject, and we are about to go live, I think this Friday. The jail system, which we pump out all of our arrest reports to the media. Doesn't matter what they are. We just give them.
Right.
We don't wait for them to ask. So you have a more informed community, and sometimes that more informed, have you read the newspaper? It's got all these people arrested. We publish all of that because I believe that the public has a right to know what the law enforcement organization is doing. Straight up, without question, without conditions. So when those arrest reports are received in the morning, they get sanitized for private information, and they go straight out to the press. I want a well-informed community. Too often we look to police to protecting ourselves, but we don't give the public enough information to be that first line of defense. For example, it's holiday season. Don't shop and leave the presents on the dashboard while you run into the next store.
Right.
You're creating the target, okay? So we use that that engagement to constantly remind folks where they can help themselves to prevent from becoming a victim. That technology is emerging. We are looking at right now, as we grow towards, and this may be a question you have down the road, one of the bigger issues in Carson is the amount of investment Carson City is doing in trails, entertainment back in the offline, outlying areas, and of course the Lake Tahoe area. And we have submitted for 2 years now a heads up to the city in their growth management that we may well need to attend to this by providing for law enforcement coverages of our rural areas. We're anticipating where we're going to be in the years to come, and that growth or that pursuit is exciting, and it makes me want to keep going.
How do you ensure accountability within your department? Stand by. We're just gonna edit
I'll
this
take this
part
time
out.
to take a break.
Brought to you by Carson.
Sorry.
Do you want to close that door? Sorry, John.
How do we ensure accountability inside the department? Accountability is not a challenging thing to do. My door is always open, as well as others. From the level of supervision on any inquiry about accountability, somebody was rude, somebody did this, somebody did that, gets an immediate attention from the immediate supervisor. Sometimes that's frustrating for the complainer. They want to jump straight to the sheriff, but we actually have a process in place. You have a concern, you bring it into the department, that complaint, if you will, is documented and investigated. If that investigation finds that it's worthy or warrants a higher level, maybe it's a more complicated issue, then all agencies would use the same terminology. An internal affairs investigation is performed. As long as we can do it. Sometimes we have to farm it out. If it's believed that there may be some level of a conflict of interest, very often we farm it out to, most often, State Bureau of Investigations, NDI, so that conflict is removed. And following that, once the investigators are done, investigators focus in on collecting the data. Then it goes to a supervisory level, usually at the management level, for a review and a recommendation for a disciplinary action. Disciplinary actions in accordance with the contracts, can range from a training, you need to stop doing this is the right way, all the way through a termination. And what we look for is, number one, people can make mistakes, but how serious is that mistake? Is it one that can be survived, or is it one that creates such discredit, maybe it was a criminal violation, then it could rise to that level. And that's an important distinction. When that disciplinary issue, the first thing that has to be decided is it criminal or is it functional policy? In the cases where it is criminal, we may ask the state to run the criminal investigation, as we always do, because we're not going to do a criminal investigation on our own people. But we'll run parallel to that a internal investigation that directs at policy. Did this person violate the policy? The big difference between the two is the peace officer's bill of rights and how and what can be asked. You have certain rights in a criminal investigation, but in an internal investigation, that's not necessarily true. An internal investigation, I can compel you to tell me the answers at risk of termination. Okay? Those are very serious charges, but it is necessary in order to keep good order and discipline. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
And along those lines, follow up to that, how do you keep morale and build morale and teamwork when you have those situations, in general?
That's the most difficult question to answer. How do you maintain morale and discipline when you have these internal issues? Because she's my employee, she has done something wrong. Well, there's a privacy side to that, okay? I can't go out and say, Lucia did this and this is what we did to her. That's not right, okay? But you can go out and kind of skirt the issue. When you're involved in a traffic stop, don't do A, B, C, D. You can address it with everyone, but you cannot share the specifics of an individual personnel file. So what I have found is that while we may all be friends, if my behavior is such that it's causing a problem, I think people look to leadership to step in and stop that. It may not feel good at the time, but I think it does provide for good order and discipline. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah. Very good, thank you. Moving on to more situational things, what is your approach to mental health crisis and the substance abuse issues in the community? How does your office go about handling that? And especially like we have in other big cities, you know, the people on the homeless on the streets are so often mentally challenged and substance abuse folks, and I imagine we don't have that huge a problem here, but it does exist. And so how much of an impact is that on the office, and how do you guys go about handling those cases?
Stop me if I'm incorrect. These are two different questions within my organization. Okay. When it comes to the homeless population and abuses within there, we run a multiple approach towards dealing with it. Number one, I do rely a lot on my nonprofit agencies here in town for cooperation. We all know that Fish does a lot, Circles does a lot. Nights Off the Streets, we engage with our clergy. I'm very happy with the response that the patrol function does. I'm complimented a lot because our patrols will, especially in the wintertime, pick up a homeless person and get them to a shelter versus dying on the street in the cold. We have an inmate crew that also goes out and works on the homelessness within this town. And I keep a track, pretty close track, using Nights Off the Streets as a good daily formula. Obviously the homeless counts is another formula to track where is the problems in this community when it comes to homelessness and why. Many of our homeless, contrary to a lot of popular belief, have connections in this town. Others, very transitory, they pass through and they go on. Our nonprofits do make efforts to get people to where they belong, not by forcing them out of the community, but they've made it here and they're going to destination Z, but they have no ability, their car is broken or whatever the case is. We have made efforts to get them, but when we do that, those are done with positive handoffs. I believe that the homeless response, well, number one, law enforcement's response to homelessness is referral of services. I think we go well beyond that. Our mobile outreach teams are heavily engaged in this. Our church services, clergy services are heavily engaged in it. I have my inmate crew that goes in behind homeless encampments, if you will, and cleans them for the residential owners, or the property owners. I don't think you can allow homelessness to create a village. You cannot do that in this community. So we have to keep track of that. We use every opportunity to get our homeless, including the Health and Human Services. I sit on the tripartite committee, which looks to bring homelessness into sheltered occupations, get them off the street, get them cleaned, and start working towards self-sustaining, which is a objective of fish, not a hand. What do they call it? Not a hand off or
hand out.
Not a hand out, but a hand up. No, not a hand.
Yes, you had it right.
We want to work with them, and we are very successful. When you consider Nights Off the Streets, Fish, Tripartite, which I sit on their board of directors, these organizations, circles that are really working with the homelessness. In those cases where substance abuse or mental health is on board, obviously our mobile outreach experts, we have three, we are working at our third one right now, we're expanding this year, but we have clinicians that are capable of dealing with a lot of the homeless issues, dividing, is this a homeless issue, circumstantial maybe, or is this a chronic issue where drugs, mental health are involved, and it becomes more challenging. One of the biggest step-ups that we have done this past year is peer support, where her circumstances or your circumstances are more intense and require more attention than our law enforcement organization can apply. We can bring a peer support in, and he can devote a lot more time and effort to this one person, especially when we can see an out, we can see an improvement. So again, you're back to that community policing and collaboration, where law enforcement can get other organizations the information, where we can refer services, then we make tremendous gains. And we have seen some very, very successful ones, high utilizers. We work with all of our organizations with the hospitals and the behavioral health to expand on those needed services and succeed at times. When it comes to the drugs, we have at the Sheriff's Office a completely proactive program. Back to my military days, I did a lot of narcotics enforcement. I was brought in under this umbrella of what does a drug program look like. And yes, we have police officers all over the town. But in my early education, which stands consistent to this day, a drug program must be three-tiered. Okay, it must consist of your street-level narcotics use, your mid-level distribution narcotics use, and your upper-level narcotics use. And so we now, after years, have all three components of that program of the Sheriff's Office. I have a team here that focuses in on the street level of all ages, juvenile and adult. I have one member assigned to a task force at the state level in this region. I have another sheriff's deputy who is assigned to the federal task force up in Reno for those upper level distributions. Whether that intercept was done in California or right here in Carson City still benefits. And so that three-pronged effort towards denying the drug use in this community is outstanding. We also work with drug courts for those people who become arrested for whatever reason, and the court's given that opportunity to realize that the drug use is the problem. And we see this all the time. This is a good inmate because you've taken that drug away from them. That person is good. So utilizing, I just spoke with a mother this morning, utilizing the drug courts, what do they call it, alternatives, specialty courts, you can get further down the road towards successes with that longer term oversight and insurances, and keeping that person engaged with the family, engaged with employment, and engaged in the community. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
How do you balance proactive policing, you just mentioned proactive, with respect for civil liberties?
Okay, that's a tough one. How do I balance the two? Number one, civil liberties come first. Okay, I mentioned Carson City is unique. We all know the demonstrations that occur around here. We all know the atmosphere of entertainment around here. There are civil liberties that we have. They may be annoying to me as your neighbor, but they're not illegal. Okay, and we have to maintain a strong level of supervision and management over those divisions that are overseeing those police functions to ensure. I will tell you right off the top, the very first break is non-political. The sheriff's office cannot be a political organization. I saw that growing up, and I wanted to put a halt to it when I came in, and I believe that I have been successful at that. It doesn't matter what your views are in life. It doesn't matter that you and I disagree. What matters is public safety. And it's tough to balance it because one person's level of fear or allegation may be different than another's. But we train our officers very heavily, working very closely with the district attorney's office on what is an offense and what is not. That's a tough one when you see a lot of the emotional angers that we see in front of this legislature, okay? And I use that as an example. When people are demonstrating, they have a right to that, okay? Not only that, this is the appropriate place because it is the Capitol. If you have an argument with government, take it to the government, okay? In the neighborhood, it can be challenging. Our best advice in the neighborhood is get to know your neighbors. When we find neighborhood watch type activities, what we find is the neighbors begin exchanging information, and all of a sudden, those violations go away. Okay? Sometimes you just got to reach out and say hello. And we, as an example, are working on one today where mental health may be at the core of it. So we use a backup approach of our mental health teams to see if there are services that can be applied to de-escalate the challenges. Does that answer your question?
How do you view cooperation between Sheriff's Office and federal agencies such as ICE, especially regarding enforcement related to illegal immigrants?
I will tell you that our relationships with the federal government have been sound for the last 20 years. We all know the Guzman case. Guzman killed 2 ladies down in Douglas County and a couple up in Reno. Okay? Immigration had been working with us, including riding in our patrol cars, becoming familiar with Carson City's organization for years. In that Guzman case, but for their cooperation with us, he would not have been taken into custody that day. That's an example. When it comes to immigration type enforcement, we have an excellent direct contact with HSI. They inform us when they're coming to Carson. They inform us as to why they're coming to Carson. They don't come into Carson in riot gears and such. They tell us they're coming to get Kenny Furlong. He lives over on this street. We're going to go down there this morning and take him into custody. It works fine. It's very low-keyed and has complemented the community. Many people ask, why then won't I just sign on with what they call it, 280 program, deputizing our deputies as immigration officers. It's a very, very important piece right here. We are serviced very well by our federal agency partners. If I give up labor hours to the federal government, which you and I, we already pay our taxes, you are now going to get hit double because I have to backfill that resource. And I'm talking about the labor hours, okay? If I deputize you to process immigration warrants, then your focus is going to be over here versus what you were hired to do. And whether you do 1 hour a day, 4 hours a week, or whatever, the community becomes the payee, okay? The services that HSI provides for us today could not be more efficient and cost our taxpayers here in Carson City less. When we have the circumstance, when a person comes into custody, we now, in our annual report to the Board of Supervisors, we notify immigration. This person is in our custody for a traffic warrant. They will inform us as to whether or not they would like to place a hold on him, and in turn, down the road, whether or not they are going to take him. It's not 100% rule. In those cases of serious offenses, we have not run across many of those since Guzman, but that cooperation saves our community money at every level. It creates efficiency in governing. With our other counterparts, the FBI, Secret Service, DEA, all of those foundations are extraordinarily strong. I meet with those director heads, if you will, for the state of Nevada on a regular basis to ensure that operations are continuing to go in the right direction. If you ask me where I would love to go with this, and that would be one more deputy assigned to a task force up in Reno, but right now it's status. Excellent relationships, great for the community, most efficient.
How do you approach constitutional carry laws in Nevada, and what changes, if any, would you advocate?
None. There's two issues that we are faced with on a daily basis. The concealed weapon carries and the constitutional carries, okay? Sometimes the constitutional carries cross the line and that becomes threatening, okay? An example that first comes to mind is you asked the question, a young man's walking down Highway 50 or William Street with a rifle. And I'm not talking about a hunting rifle, I'm talking about an assault style white rifle. That's crossing the line of he has a right to have that gun, especially when motorists passing by or businesses that he walks by feel threatened by that. In Carson, we have not run into many real challenging circumstances. Back to the credit of the community, okay? We have seen some young folks cause us some concern. We have seen some crossover CCW people cause us some concern, but those are case by case, and they don't have a real, I have to caution myself, they don't have an impact on my perception of the constitutional carry and the CCW carries. There are rights in both cases, and it's our job to enforce those rights. So while it might offend you, or you might be fearful of it, it's the responsibility of us to determine, well, has it crossed the line to the point of an endangerment to the community? When it does, working with the DA's office, we will take an action, but that has rarely been the case. Now, set aside the constitutional carry, on the concealed weapons side, there are actual requirements that will revoke those entitlements. For example, a domestic violence case, might revoke that CCW pending an investigation. On the constitutional carry side, unless it's revoked by the court, there's really little we can do with that.
Okay. And reciprocity between Nevada and other states, would you like to see it expanded, lessened, stay the same?
You know, in a wonderful world, all states would be the same.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for all states to be the same, it has to be regulated by the federal government. I don't believe in that. I don't believe the federal government knows where Carson City is. It's challenging.
Yeah.
I think that states have a necessary responsibility to regulate it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're traveling here from Minnesota, it's difficult for you to know the rules of every state that you pass through
Mm-hmm.
and be in compliance with something that you're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where we see most of the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
most of the real the inquiry. What are the, I'm coming through Nevada, I plan on staying for 2 weeks, but my destination is Sacramento. What are the rules here in Carson? Okay. Those travelers suffer the most impact
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's just impossible to know every requirement of every state.
Mm-hmm.
Where can we do better, and what would it take to be better if elected in your next term?
I already got this one for you. Thank you.
I'm teeing you up here, Sheriff.
Once a week, Carson Now and the Nevada Appeal. Headlines for the day. Don't become a victim of fraud. Calm down. Those two things. We are constantly seeing horrific losses in fraud. But Sheriff, you're the one who called me. No, I didn't. Okay? The losses are horrific in fraud, scams. Second to that is we are still seeing a level of stress in our society. And that's not just here in Carson, but it is being emulated here. It's all the way across the country. We're not giving ourselves the opportunity to step back and have dialogue, have a conversation, and not become aggressive. That is the challenge that we are seeing right now, and I expect to see this for a time into the future. We saw it absolutely escalate last year at a point. As it came down, what we saw, and remember I'm talking about this anxiety that people are feeling, as it started to come back down towards the end of the year, we saw suicide spiking up. There was a frustration in our society with this tension of everything. You can't turn on the news, you can't read the newspaper. Sometimes you can't have dialogue. Where that stress is so high, it bleeds over into the workplace, into the homes, into the schools, into our social circles, and it becomes a massive cancer. So as I look at the next year forward, if I got my wish, and I did get part of it with the Nevada Appeal recently, when I asked them to do what they don't do. Would you please do an article on suicides? We are experiencing them at an alarming rate. This is something the press does not like to do. I thank God for the Nevada Appeal having the courage to do one of the most beautiful articles I've read. I would suggest it should be digitized and sent out, because as I read it, I actually read it as a person in the community, not as the sheriff, and it touched a lot of my feelings inside. I know what it's like to suffer a loss in the family. He did, Scott. He did a wonderful job. That's the example that I'm telling you. Grab the folks' attention, okay? Stop the bickering. Engage in conversation. It's okay to disagree. Husbands and wives disagree all the time. It doesn't have to result in a fight. And it surely doesn't have to result in further than a fight. that step forward would be a great relief off of your law enforcement organization in this community.
What is your philosophy on crime prevention versus response?
Crime response is I've become an insurance adjuster. Thank you for asking that question. Proactive work is absolutely necessary, and I keep track of those activities that we do. The best example is our special enforcement team, best extreme example. They're responsible for lowering the violent crime rates here in Carson by attacking gangs and drugs, those two things, because those folks are on the street. They don't take a regular call for service. You have a prowler in your backyard, somebody is parked in front of your driveway and they won't move. They don't take that. They're concentrating on the issues that cause crime at a higher level, gangs and drugs, okay? The real cancers in your community. That's a proactive example. And as I remind you, that special enforcement is also covered at the state and the federal level to give us full-rounded support in our response to gangs and drugs. Reactive is I become an insurance agent. Okay, somebody stole your car, here's your report, file it with your insurance company. That's not servicing the community. We need to take extra efforts, step forward, keep the community informed. We spoke for a moment ago about the crimes that occur in your neighborhood and you having access to that. Every article that we publish in the newspaper, including our arrest articles, are intended to provide the community with information that, number one, safeguards themselves. We rarely have, as an example, people breaking the window of a car and breaking in to steal it or ransack it. They are crimes of opportunity. So we want the community to be aware. And we have systems in place, because I use the same tools in my weekly operations briefing that happens every Monday morning. What crime is occurring where? And I give you an example. Recently, there was a lot of damage done to the swimming pool, but no cameras, no suspects, no nothing. But in my crime mapping, it showed a pocket of crime over here, which was not far from the pool. And it ironically showed a little tail of the same type of crime going over into a neighborhood. I put my special enforcement team on it, and within a very short period, and I'm talking single-digit days, they were able to identify who was doing those crimes, which were likely suspects of the pool. They increased efforts all the way around with our patrol division and our special enforcement. They were able to take them into custody and get confessions that they were the same people that damaged the pool. That's called proactive enforcement.
And you mentioned gangs and drugs. How prevalent is that in Carson City in terms of gang involvement, both in drugs and human trafficking?
Human trafficking is low level in Carson City. You'll see more human trafficking in metropolitan environments. So we have to be wary because we sit right adjacent to one, the Reno Sports area. And I don't mean to say that as a derogatory thing, but it's a metropolitan environment. This is a smaller town. One of the proactive things to do is to watch that juvenile runaway or missing reports. They cannot be taken lightly, because that juvenile runaway can very often end up in a human trafficking ring as a means of survival. And so we look at child affairs, our relationship with the Department of Child and DCFS, Division of Child and Family Services, as partners in our responses to those things, keeping people aware, as I just did down at the legislature this month. We must prevent a runaway from using the extreme means of falling into these horrible traps, purely for survival reasons. Okay? And the other part,
Gang activity and what gangs are most dangerous.
I am most pleased in my term with our response to gangs. When I became the sheriff, one of the very first things that happened to me within years of becoming the sheriff. The state came to me, they had done a statewide assessment of gang activities, and Carson City was viewed as the worst. That was not an easy thing to sit in. Coincidentally, an incident had occurred where the press contacted me, multiple shootings. Sheriff, could you just tell us about them? Because we can't get to all of them. We had a bad day. We have turned that around with multiple response levels. One of them is we use an inmate crew to clean the streets to make sure that when people come to work in the morning, they don't see. Okay. Number two was our gang response module, realizing that county lines should not prevent law enforcement from attacking gang activity. They should not be using the county line to prevent capture. And we ensure that now with our close relationships with the counties surrounding us. I am most pleased with our gang response. It does still exist. We track them. There's no better word than to use, aggressively. We track them aggressively and are able to respond in kind, whether that's a juvenile gang activity or an adult. And sometimes generally speaking, what we view here in Carson is a hybrid gang. They're not really tied as they used to be. Remember the Bloods and all of this. And you could draw the hierarchy of a gang and put them into Carson as to where we don't have that today. What we have today in this region are gangs that are very hybrid. They're not actually tied to something, but they want to be. And so our experts in that specialized enforcement keep us abreast to that, and we're better capable working with the school district, especially when it comes to, because incidentally, a lot of the gangs are coming out of the mid-teens to the mid-20s. They come through this area. And so we work with our special enforcement and our school resource officers, educating the schools, educating the kids, and really focusing in to a level of acceptable application bullying. Because very often what you see is the seed of a gang-type philosophy in a child's head begins with being ostracized and having no one else. I think that's one of our best successes.
I have two more questions.
Sure.
One is, what is one thing you wish people understood better about law enforcement in Carson City?
I'm going to use the MOST team as an example. You notice that our clinicians wear a light greenish, kind of a tannish vest and a silver badge. They are civilians. They are clinicians. Okay. We assign a deputy, just from our patrol division, a deputy to that MOST team. The reason we do that is, and he is in full uniform, there is a safety component. But that doesn't answer her question, so we're going to set the safety component aside. I learned this from Las Vegas, that we are on the same approach. Changing the attitude of the public. These officers are not here to harm you. They are looking for ways to help you. Incidentally, about 60% plus 65% of what we are doing is helping people, not criminal. Okay? They're not criminal complaints, they are social. And so that MOST concept is the answer to your question. We want people to see the difference in today's policing versus what it was 20 and 30 years ago. You're not going to jail for something that you're not in control over, mental health. Okay? We want to help you. You're not going to go to jail for reporting your friend being suicidal. We want to help you. We want to avoid, we call it de-escalation, which has been a major drive of mine inside the sheriff's office, it's our behavioral health response program for 25 years, 20 years. We'll just round it out. 20 years. We want to avoid, by de-escalating, emergency rooms and jails. Neither one of those two facilities are designed to treat mental health or crisis. They're not. The doctor will fix your arm and put a cast on it. He cannot fix your mind. He's not trained for that. We will put you in jail because you're a threat to society, but we're not trained to treat you for your psychosis. And so the entire design brought to me by Richard Whitley and the two W's, Whitley and I can't remember that one, I'm going 20 years ago was, hey Sheriff, what do you think about changing an approach here in Carson to law enforcement that has a behavioral health response mechanism instead of jailing everybody? And I just went, this is cool. I like this. I like this. And it started with our forensic assessment program, our FAST program in the jail, counselors in the jail. We now have emerging, it's there, but it's still emerging, family services in the jail, things that go to the problem or the core of the problem versus the surface level, hey, you stole a packet of gum. Why? Does that answer the question?
That's great. And then just the last question.
Oh, I want
really
more.
Your opportunity.
I want more.
Why should Carson City Republicans, in particular, you're in the Republican office, support your candidacy and your continuation as Carson City Sheriff? And what distinguishes you from your opponent?
You know, I'm going to stay away from my opponent because I'm not running against him. I'm running for the sheriff. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's the way I have always felt. You know, he'll have his own explanation. Why should the Carson City Republicans support me? I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I support a peaceful, safe, and healthy community. Okay? I support celebrations together. When we go down to Nevada Day, it's not Democrats on one side of the street, Republicans on the other. We mix as a family, and we're all family here. We all have children in our schools. You do not want law enforcement to pick a side. And I know some jurisdictions, both sheriffs have. Okay? I know that. I don't believe in that. I believe that a community is a family. Okay? And a very good example is Carson City is very much similar to Douglas County. We're neighbors right next to each other, but we're not the same. We don't argue over it. Okay? The Carson City Republicans share many of my personal values. That's why I am a registered Republican. But please don't be offended that I reach out to all parties. Because your party affiliation means nothing to me. Your happiness in this town means everything to me. And as I have learned over the years, that has been a strength of the Carson City Sheriff's Office. Depoliticizing, politicalizing of the organization. I think that's why the Carson City Republicans should support me. Because I'm not an extremist. I go down the center of the road and I will support and help you. Just as I will support and help anyone else who has engaged in a positive manner in this town. I love the car shows. I don't ask them which party they're affiliated with. I love the Republican events. Every once in a while I get invited to I have been even been referred to as the token Republican at a Democrat event. But everybody is of value to me, not just me.
Thank you.
And then last question. Is there any questions you have of us or anything you have concerns with what we're doing, and or is there anything we haven't covered that you think we should do?
As it's coming up as through this election year, no, there's nothing that you guys haven't covered of interest. Certainly there are my interests that I continue to pursue. Well, where's the dollar being spent? A lot of people are not so much concerned about that. Is they're concerned about their welfare, their lives, and their circumstance environment. I think we have a great town. I think our challenges are relatively low. If I see them, they are in the area of alcohol and drugs. If I see them, they are in the area of people who are susceptible, kind-hearted, vulnerable, and we do everything we can with our sister agencies to work with these folks and to change lives. Specialty courts, detention operations, patrol operations, we have it all here. We have great programming here that doesn't exist in other jurisdictions. And I'll throw it out as an example, our school resource officer program, a shared value by the school district and the city of Carson. In other words, they're both contributing dollars to it. Many agencies try to fend that whole bill themselves, or not at all sometimes. But it's an example of how when we work together out of the same sandbox, we can multiply our abilities. We can multiply our advantages very, very quickly. And so with all that I have done, so many people are the credit for it. So many people. And I'm proud of that, and I want to see it continue.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right.